You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. And finally, our third sponsor is 988. The Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is a direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. That's 988oklahoma.com. And now, let's get into today's episode. Please welcome to the podcast Tammy Fate, who is, I guess, are you still senior manager of the Oklahoma City Chamber? Is that your title?
I am, yeah.
That is the title.
Retail development for a while.
That's what the LinkedIn title said. So I'm glad you keep that up to date.
It's correct.
Otherwise I'd have got that a lot wrong, and you'd have looked at me as if I had 3 heads. But I am excited to dive into, the cool things that you have done and the stuff that you've been responsible for, you and the team bringing incredible businesses to this city. It's been growing. I've been here since August 2011, so I've kind of seen the growth, which has been a good thing for me. And when I got here, like half of the Devon Tower was still built, and it was still half to go. So that was kind of like an exciting time for me to be here, coming from halfway around the world. But I'm still here, and I've got to see all of this cool stuff. But you got to see everything from the inside. And everything's coming. So I'm excited to talk about that. But before we do, tell me a little bit about you. What's your story?
My story? How did I get here?
Yeah, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school? How'd you get into the job?
Yeah, so I'm from Tulsa area. So from a very small town, Sperry. So farmland. There's not a stoplight in my town. So I was looking for a job when I was in college, and somebody had said the chamber in Tulsa was hiring, and it was a temporary position, so I needed a job while I was going to college and did that, and that turned into a full-time position, and from there it just kind of spiraled, and I did SBA lending for a little while, and from there we had a board member who was actually the president of the Broken Arrow Chamber. He's since passed away, but was my biggest mentor, and loved him. And he asked me to come on and be their VP of marketing. So I was in a smaller community. Yeah. So did that, and then worked for City of Tulsa for a number of years, and then they recruited me here, and I absolutely love it. So it's a bigger city and bigger market and so much opportunity, and it's been a blast watching it grow.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Northeastern State University, so Tahlequah.
It's beautiful up there.
It is gorgeous. It's so pretty. So I got my master's from there as well, and did some adjunct teaching for a number of years, which absolutely love doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can be exhausted from a day of work, but then going and teaching in the evenings and just seeing, the kids light up and just being a part of that and know that you're, contributing to their success is really fun.
Yeah. So what was the childhood dream then growing up? I assume you didn't think you'd be doing what you do now.
I didn't. It's funny. I wanted to be a teacher and a coach.
Okay.
And my dad said, well, if you want to coach so much, why don't we take on a team? So we took on this softball team, and I didn't have a kid, so I just took on this random group of recreational kids, and I realized then that you can love the sport, but it doesn't mean that you're going to love teaching it. And I had all these kids. I remember a dad showed up, and he gave me 2 gloves, and he goes, I don't know if my daughter's right-handed or left-handed, but here you go.
Will you find out for me?
Yeah. So that, and just taking kids home all the time. And it was fun. It was a great experience. But then I took a botany class, and I tried so hard. I really, really wanted to be successful. Yeah. And I was terrible. I couldn't grow anything. And I decided that maybe I should switch to being a business major. And from then I never turned back. And it just seemed to kind of click and fell into place. So
do you play quite a lot of sports growing up then as well?
I played softball growing up, and then in my older days, I've become a cyclist. So I spend every weekend biking.
Yeah.
So I did a 75-mile ride yesterday, and I went out towards Union City. I don't know if you know where Union City is.
I do not, no.
I didn't either, but it's near Mustang, and we went to the south side at like 119th, and it was dreary and rainy, but it was still beautiful. Took a bunch of farm roads, end up near El Reno, and I think we might have hit 5 cities in 75 miles, but it was fun.
So, road biking or any form of biking?
Mostly road, but I also do gravel riding and mountain biking.
Okay.
So
have you done the Mid-South yet?
I have.
Okay. I run the Mid-South.
Oh, wow. That's a tough
I tried
course.
to run it last year. I failed miserably because it snowed.
Yeah, the weather was awful.
And I'll run it again next year. Did you get in?
I didn't try to get in this year. I was out of town.
Yeah,
they just did the lottery, I think, Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday, early morning. And it was like at 8 o'clock, and no one's going to sign up to run 50 kilometers, right? So I was easily, got in for that. But it was 8:01, and all of the men's things, it was all full. It's like, all right, but thankfully you can sell your ticket or whatever it is, you can trade. Yeah, but it's such a cool. I did the run to, what was that? It was March of 2020, the first time I did it.
Yeah,
and loved it. Convinced a friend to do it, and he hates me since that day because he's a CrossFit guy, and he's like was miserable the entire time. And halfway through, I said, like, I'm gonna put my headphones in and keep my head down, and I turned around and he disappeared. Yeah. So it took him an extra couple hours. But just that community, and then I cycle. I haven't for a long time, but I did. I have a bike, and I don't get out as often as I should, but I've gone to the indoor Peloton bike instead now. Yeah. But just like the community from it's incredible. It is. Right?
The people that you meet.
Especially the gravel world.
Oh my gosh, they're so easygoing and just chill and relaxed, and you can pick and choose your road bike friends too. You can get a really chill group as well. So we like to ride, and we'll hit a cool food spot along the way, or check out one of the breweries or a coffee shop. So we try to make an event around it. So
do you go to the Tuesday nights down at Wheeler District at all?
I've been a few times. It's a great time. I mean, it's beautiful. They do a great job. I have a friend, and she races in it, so I try to go out there and watch her when I can. So
they've really grown like the women's side of it.
They have. There's a ton of women.
It's been really cool to watch because we've been down to watch. We take the dogs down every now and then and catch up. I think they're done now for the year because it's getting cold, but we've been down to see them. And it's and Chad's going to come on the podcast at some time.
He's great.
Yeah, to kind of talk about that whole thing. But it's really cool, and that whole district is a fun to be around. And the fact that they just like shut the street down for every Tuesday for like a 2-hour race, 2 hours of racing. That's pretty cool.
They used to have it there before Wheeler District became Wheeler District. So they would race out there on the old the airstrip. So I remember going out there many times then and watching them race in the circle. Now it goes to the neighborhood, and you have the Big Friendly brewery over there and the taco shop, and so they've really added a lot of amenities over there to enhance that district, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. My wife said to me, she's like, I could live down here, and I'm like, I don't think I could, but I mean, it is, it's an acquired taste.
It is. You're close to the new park, which is amazing. So that's kind of a selling point, I think, for them too. It's nice to see a development like that happen on the south side of the river. But I feel like we're kind of slowly getting some things to happen over there between that and the FAM. So First American Museum is beautiful. We did an event there at the Chamber. We had the big IEDC conference, which was in town, I think like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And they held a reception out at the First American Museum, and it was just so well done and beautiful. And so
that's what's going to be cool, right? It's like obviously the river, River Sport, and Mike did his whole thing and came in, and then you, like I said, you add to it, right? You just have these things along the river that in 10, 20 years time, you can walk from one to the other,
right?
But it's cool to see them grow and build and go from literally an old airfield, right, dirt patch, to we've just added a Ferris wheel in the middle of nowhere, and now it's like this whole district. So that's exciting to see, and obviously you're kind of in the middle of all of that. But tell me about kind of your I guess journey. I guess what was the degree in college then? Because you said you went to work for the Chamber because you needed a job, right? So what was the journey? What was the degree in college?
Business degree, emphasis in marketing.
Okay.
So Just kind of, I went into SBA lending and I made presentations to banks. And at the time, I met somebody in the chamber world, didn't even know what a chamber was, but kind of fell in love with that part of it and like selling a city and meeting different people all the time, which I love to meet people. So in my job now, I'm on the road quite a bit. So last week I was the week before I was in San Diego. So I was at a conference out there meeting some different developers and some groups out there to try to lure them to Oklahoma City. And then the week before that I was in Fort Worth. So met with some different chefs and restaurant driven concepts that are looking at our market. So just an opportunity to kind of showcase what's happening here, which is fun. It's an easy city to sell, I say, just because to see like what's happened and what's transpired around the boathouse and telling people that we hold the canoe races and they moved an event from Russia to Oklahoma City, and it's just really cool to show people pictures and say, we have a $45 million whitewater rafting facility and an area that we used to mow, now we have it dammed up and we hold Olympic trials, and they're like, in Oklahoma City? And I'm like, let me show you these pictures. And I bring out my iPad. And so I love that part of it. It's kind of that effect of people have no idea. They think of us as like a flyover state, but then when they start seeing some of the pictures and some of the information that we put out. And luckily, we have a great marketing team. So our marketing department is always pushing content and trying to kind of help elevate the message for Oklahoma City. And so I try to share as much as I can on LinkedIn. And when I was in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, one of the guys that I met there, he goes, you share more on LinkedIn? I feel like I want to move to Oklahoma City. He goes, I've never been. He goes, but I see all this stuff that you're sharing. And I'm like, I have to go visit that place. So it's kind of fun when you feel like you've made it when you...
Right. Like I'm doing my job, right? Like if people are coming to you and like, I want to move there, I want to see it. And then we had the Red Bull thing, right? A couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, which was crazy.
It looked amazing. I didn't get to go. My boyfriend got COVID and he was really sick. So we had tickets to go and we were going to go to the Friday night event and then he got sick. So I didn't feel like I probably should be there either. Yeah. So we watched a little bit of it. It was on TV, which was pretty cool to be able to see some of that live stream. So
it's so cool to kind of see, just the city and how diverse, like how many different things you can do in this city, right? Like I said, you have the whitewater rafting, you have the incredible cycle trails, the marathon's one of the biggest marathons in the country, right? And all this other stuff, and not just around like physical stuff, right? The food scene's growing, right? We have a raced horse track here with Remington. There's plenty. I golf, so there's loads of golf courses. The golf here is incredible. Like there's just so much to do. Our beer scene is now growing. Our coffee scene seems to be getting better as well. I'm not a huge coffee drinker, but it's what people tell me.
It's amazing.
Right? Like, there's so much to... like, doing your job must seem so exciting because you're like... I mean, you meet someone, you're like, what are your interests? Right. And then you're like, oh, we have this, and this for you, and this, and this for your wife. It's... Right. It must be really... Especially, and then you go to travel and see all what everyone else is doing, too.
It was really cool is I think when the city developed the retail districts, so having the Plaza, Paseo, Stockyards, Western Avenue, and having like an executive director from each of those different districts is really key. So we do an event a couple of times a year called Stand Tall, Shop Small, and it really encourages everybody to get out and shop and really support those local businesses that make up the flavor of those communities. But having somebody that you can call on in each of those districts makes it really helpful. Just because we're such a big city. Right. 620 square miles. Like people will ask me, hey, Tammy, what's going on at the corner of? And I'm like, I have no idea. I wish I knew, but I'm kind of glad that I don't because we're growing so fast that it's exciting that there's so much going on that it's really kind of hard to keep up with. So it's exciting.
So with all of these things growing then, with like I said, the popping up of districts and, they're just growing on their own and people are taking ownership, it seems, in their area, which does your job for you, right? It really helps you as well. And I know we just had Plaza Fest and, they had the Sunny Days Mural Festival out of Britain, this new Britain district. Right. So you're selling all these things to companies that want to come to Oklahoma City, basically, or people. Right.
Well, sometimes they don't even know they want to be here, which is kind of the fun part is when you find a concept that you really like, or if you're in another city and you're like, this would fit so well, like they need to come to Oklahoma City. So to me, that's kind of the hunt, is that you get to reach out to them and try to talk to them about what's happening here and where they would fit in and how they could be an asset in our community. And it's funny, when I was in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, this lady, she was like, I mean, I live in wine country. I'm in Bay country. I mean, we live by the bay. We have the ocean. Like, why would I come to Oklahoma City? And I was like, well, I mean, it's beautiful. We have all these great districts. Our homeless population is very minimal compared to what I've seen in and you can get anywhere in 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And after being in San Diego and seeing how bad they're dealing with that homeless issue and how well I feel like Oklahoma City is doing, I think when I mentioned that, she's like, okay, you win.
Right.
And then I started pulling at my iPad and showing her pictures, but I had to bring something to like say, I mean, you can get anywhere in our city so quickly. I feel like our infrastructure is great. We've done a good job of like building the infrastructure to make it easy to get around here. And when you take somebody to the airport, you're like, oh man, we hit rush hour. And they're like, this is rush hour? Like, really? I mean, we're what, 15 minutes away? And I'm like, I know, I figured we'd be here in 10.
Yeah, we're still moving at 30 mile an hour, like we're in rush hour traffic. Sorry, we don't stand still. Yeah.
But it's nice that like I think our infrastructure is so well that, and people can live anywhere. That's what I tell them. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter where you live. Like, I mean, what we've done to downtown, I think is really impressive. Like the First National Building and what Gary Brooks did to that is just a hidden gem. I mean, it's beautiful. And now you have Luke Casey's there and, plenty open to a location there. There's a dry bar. Andrew Black has the Gilded Acorn, which is a very nice little pastry and coffee shop there. So
yeah, that building is so cool.
It's beautiful.
And the sad thing is, like, most people aren't going to get to see, like, when you could visit there and you can stay there and have a great stay, but like they need to have tours of that building. They do, right? I mean, but sadly, most people aren't going to do that, right? Like the distilled, Library of Distilled, whatever it is.
Beautiful.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
like I love it, and I really don't socialize as much as I should probably, and don't take advantage of the incredible things that we have in the city. But if you have a guest that's coming to town, or your parents are coming to town, you're taking them there, right? 100%. That's one of like 5 or 6 places you're probably going to swing by just to see it. Just to go through, just to come up those elevators and have that you come to the lobby like, wow, like this is amazing.
Yeah, he left no stone unturned. I mean, I love his attention to detail and just creativity that he kind of poured into that, and it definitely shows. So it's a great piece. And I got to see it come up. I mean, our office is right across the street, so I could look out the window every day and I saw kind of the challenges and growing pains, and you could hear the construction over there happening and the building shaking. But now it's worth it to see the final product and to see how beautiful it is. So.
Yeah, there must be so many things that, like, when I'm sure you get asked this a lot of, like, what's the best thing about your job? And you're like, I mean, literally everything. I get to travel and I get to sell this incredible city. But that's like the hard question. The hard answer really is probably that. But there is so much to do here that it probably makes your job a lot easier than other people who are like, come to Detroit. Right. And like, no. Like, why would I want to do that? Right. Like, come to Oklahoma City. We have all of this cool stuff.
Right, we'll take you to a Thunder game, and you can, it's just fun to have the atmosphere. Even if we aren't winning, it's still the stadium is filled full of people. And that's the one thing I said that we can all get behind, regardless if you live in Tulsa, you live in Oklahoma City. We'll put our differences aside, and everybody just rallies behind the Thunder, which I think is really cool. And to have somebody in from out of town, or I took a group whitewater rafting, and it's really cool because now they tell the story when they're at a conference. If they happen to walk up and I'm talking to some guests and they're like, oh my gosh, you have to go to Oklahoma City, they have this great rafting facility. So I think tailoring your site visits to the person's interests, because what I feel like is every city can be similar, but you have to get them to kind of fall in love with your city. Yeah. And it's all about, like, what do you like to do? If you want to go play golf or you want to go do this, like, I'll meet you wherever you want. I've taken people on bike rides. Yeah. I've taken them rafting. We've done the brewery scene. So it's really tailoring it to make them feel like I can see myself here, or I can live here.
Well, and I mean, the bike thing, like, you can cycle around the entire city on great paved pathways.
It's nice.
Like, where else can you do that?
I know.
Like, I'm sure there are places, but yeah, like when I had 2 friends came here from back home, and one of them lives in Vancouver, so he came here, and then the other guy like brought his bike from the UK over. They met in Vancouver, and then they came down here. and I was like, hey, let's go cycle. Like, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just wait.
Yeah.
You know, we cycle. I live kind of northwest Oklahoma City, so we cycled basically from the boathouse in Yukon, Lake Oposo, all the way to downtown.
Yeah.
You know, had fuzzies and then cycled back, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and they were like, this is incredible. You know, and we didn't see many people along the route the whole way other than people who were on bikes.
Right.
You know, it's such a great route. So, yeah, that was fun. And, you know, it's obviously the golf thing's an easy sell here as well. But, yeah, like there's, I mean, 20 plus breweries you could take people to.
There's so
20
many.
plus coffee shops you could take people to. Yeah, that's exciting for you to host people, I'm sure, to have that. But bringing it, I guess, to recent stuff, what's it like selling that to businesses instead, rather than the personal, like, hey, you come move here because we have this all cool stuff. What's it like when you have to bring a business in and say, you should come to this market? Because that's like probably the sell, right? It's like, I don't really care about what our employees are going to do, but how do we make money in a market like this? What's that like?
Well, luckily we have a really good economist on staff, and his team is phenomenal. So they pull together a lot of data for us, and we have a lot of people moving here, I think, because once you come here, you kind of instantly see how you can fit in. So the fact that our population has grown so much in the last 10 years, you know, that helps a lot, because density really drives retail. So the more people that you have, the better opportunities that you can get for getting people to locate in an area. So density is key. Incomes are really key. So having those major employers and major jobs in your market and being able to show them, you know, traffic counts and traffic patterns and those kind of things are really key.
Yeah.
So we're working right now on a big, it'd be new to market destination entertainment type user that is hopefully lands soon, and it would be amazing. I wish I could tell you who it is, but
that's the tough part of your job.
No, it is, because I get so excited about these places, and it's so fun when they finally land, you know. But then it's funny, people will send me text messages, Tammy, did you know this is happening? And I'm like, we've been working it for 2 years, but I couldn't say anything. But yes, So it's fun though. But I feel like once they see like other successful retailers and they'll say, oh, I didn't know you had them in the market, you know, then it kind of breeds more success. So when you see somebody else who's doing a really good job, or you see, you know, like a good example is like Chicken and Pickel. You know, I loved working with them. It was probably one of my favorite concepts that I got to work with. And we toured with them, you know, several times, and kind of chasing them to try to get them interested. Because at first they had no interest in Oklahoma City. They're a Kansas City-based company, met them at a conference, and just kind of stayed after them and like, you need to come tour. And I went out there to see them first. Yeah. And then when I saw it, I was like, if you can make it here, like you can do, like, we'll find you the perfect site in Oklahoma City. So really they pick, you just kind of help like guide them and show them like what the options are, because we are such a big city. Do they want to be downtown? Do they want to be in the suburbs? How much do you want to pay for land? Like, you know, there's a lot of variables that play into that. And there was a lot of people that were in pickleball that lived in Edmond, but they still wanted to be in Oklahoma City proper, and they needed great visibility. And where they chose was halfway between downtown and Oklahoma or Edmond, so it seemed to be kind of a perfect fit. Yeah. And they're killing it. I mean, they're doing a great job, and it's they're busy every weekend. I have people that tell me like, I want to go there, but I can't get in.
It's fully booked. Yeah.
So. Yeah,
that's it's funny you mentioned that, because I asked Brianna. I said, well, what shall we talk about? She goes, have her tell the Chicken and Pickle story. Yeah. Well,
I got to tour with them on a bike, which was really cool. So their owner came to town, and he texts me and says, hey, I got here. It was on like a Sunday, and I know we're not meeting until tomorrow. I just wanted to let you know I made it. I'll see you tomorrow morning. And I'm like, well, hey, do you ride bikes? Yeah. And he's like, man, I can. It's been a while. And so I was like, well, I got a couple of bikes. I'll come downtown and we'll just kind of tour around. I'll show you around and just get a flavor for the city. And we had so much fun. And he thought I was going to rent him a Spokies, right? And I was like, no, I got a bike. You're about the same height as me. You can borrow one of mine. You have to wear a helmet, though. I was like, because I ride with people all the time. And as long as you wear a helmet, I'll take you wherever you want to go. Right. And we went to, at the time, Blue Garden was, you know, still going on. And it's funny, this lady saw his shirt and it said Chicken and Pickle, right? And she goes, oh my gosh, do you play pickleball? And you would have thought like I staged this or something. And they just hit it off. And she's the one who said, we have all these people in Edmond who play pickleball. Please bring something cool here. And then from then we just went to dinner and hung out. And, he's at that point, he was just kind of getting a canvas of the city. He's like, I don't know where I want to be, but I love the people here. He's like, it's fun. And everybody's been so welcoming and inviting. So he made several trips up here and, it's been good. And then like Bar K, another one, like absolutely love working with them. And
what's that?
Bar K is going to be the dog park, restaurant, and bar that's down by the boathouse. Okay. So it's under construction right now. And what's really cool is before I got my little puppy Lucy, and she's like my entire world. So Brian probably told you I talk a lot about Lucy too, but it's funny. I met Dave Hensley and the group from Bar K, and they had this video, and the video was so like compelling, and it just brought me in. I was like, man, I want a dog. Like I've always wanted, but I was like, I travel too much. I don't know. And then the pandemic happened, right? And I was at home by myself, and I'm like, I'm getting a dog. Yeah. And now she's like my best friend. And I tell Dave all the time when I see him, I'm like, yeah, your video like inspired me to like, finally do that. And now she's my best friend. So it's going to be a great concept. It's like 2.5 acres. It's down by the river. So it was a partnership with the city, with, Mike from the Boathouse Foundation. And it's really kind of going to serve as a catalyst for that trail there. So the river trails plus the whitewater facility. So they'll have food, beverage, bring your dogs. They do all kinds of events, live music. I mean, it's going to be a blast. So having something like that on the river will be really cool.
Yeah. So back to the chicken and pickle thing then. With when somebody sees his T-shirt, because I knew nothing of pickleball until Chicken and Pickle came here. Right. Like probably like most people.
Right.
I still haven't played it because I will break my ankle. And I've had clients that have broken their ankle. And I'm like, I'm going to go and eat and watch because the food's good too. But like, when that person comes up to, the owner is like, oh my gosh, like you must be like, this is perfect right now. And I promise you, I have no idea who this person is.
Exactly. I had no idea who it was.
It's so cool to have that. And then, like I said, you kind of, it's quite a process to get them to find the spot and come here. Right. But, now it's like, it's like I said, it's packed all the time.
It is.
Which is awesome.
It's fun to kind of lean on people in the community, too, that are successful entrepreneurs that have been in the community. So if you're a restaurant group, I love to call on, the Keith Pauls of the world or, the folks from Provision Concepts or, 84 Hospitality and just have them kind of help tell the story. And it's nice to have somebody who's in the market who's doing the same thing say, we love it here. This is where you want to be. And I love the fact that most of the people in the market don't look at it as like, we're full. They look at it as like, we want more. And, the better that everybody does and the options that we have kind of increases for, all of us. So,
yeah. The other one that Brianne did mention, it makes total sense now because you love the outdoors, is REI.
Yes.
Right?
I worked so long to try to get REI to come here. I know that we talked to him about trying to get him to go to the river, and then maybe utilizing the river
which would have made sense
to do some like boat testing, and you could take your whitewater rafting and paddle boards and stuff. Because I got a paddle board from REI. Well, actually, my boyfriend's came from REI. Mine came from California. So, but we go all the time, and I take my little puppy with me, and I love it. But I told everybody until I get an REI here, I'm gonna feel like I failed. Because I love that store so much, and I spend a lot of money there. And I was excited. I got to meet their CEO at the time. I was at a conference in Phoenix, and that was the highlight, is to go to the reception and actually spend 30 minutes. And luckily at the time, his name was Jerry Strezik, I think. He's since then not the CEO, but he had 2 degrees from Oklahoma, one from OU, one from OSU. And to be like, our market, why aren't you here?
Why are you not here yet? You know everything about us.
And it's funny because they think, well, we have a lot of climbing stuff and, there's not a lot of mountains there. So to be able to say, well, people can go to the Wichita Mountains, a pretty easy drive, and Arkansas is fairly close, and they have everything.
Right.
Have you been to Bentonville? Have you been to Fayetteville area? So, and I feel like there's a lot of people here that it's a quick flight to Colorado. I know I love the mountains and I go quite often. So the fact that you can get a direct flight on Southwest and, be in Denver,
right there.
An hour and a half or less than that, it's really nice. And I feel like a lot of people do vacation in Denver or, things like that. So The disposable income that we have here allows you to kind of jump on a flight and do that. So
that must be like what you just said. You feel like if you didn't bring them here, you'd be a failure. Like that's the tough part about probably what you love doing is like you want to bring someone in that you love, but also you know they'll be great for the city, and it's kind of. It's like selling that in a way that's like, look, I don't want you to come here because I actually want you to come here. I want you to come here because you will. It's a benefit to you.
Exactly.
Like that's the hard part, right?
Right.
Like, no, please come here because I like with Topgolf, for example.
Right.
Like, come here because I love Topgolf, right? Come here, it's great. But also, like, you have to convince them that it's a smaller market than they're usually doing, and that, but it will be benefit for them. And then a few years later, you have Snoop Dogg doing his DJ set, like, just insane. But yeah, like that's the cool part about it is because you are on the front line selling, businesses on Oklahoma City, right? And the tough part probably is like when people, when someone comes to town like an REI or a Chicken Pickel, they don't specifically know it's you unless they know you, right? Like that's the hard part. You're like, I wish I could take full credit for this, but nobody knows about all the work that I've been doing the last 4 years to get them here.
It's just because you get to meet so many cool people that are the site selection person or the director of real estate. So just being a part of that and knowing that you had an impression on that, I think is really impactful.
Yeah.
One of the other good stories I like is Flick's Brew House. When they opened here, I mean, they toured for a really long time. The lady who had the job before me, she had toured with them a few times as well. And then when I got here, I was like, man, that'd be so cool. They would do phenomenal in Oklahoma City. And the fact that they chose our market for their first location in the entire state, and then they opened in the middle of the pandemic, which was terrible timing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember being in Austin at the time. Alan Reagan is their CEO. Since then, I think he stepped down and somebody else has taken over. And I asked him, like, out of all the markets, how did you choose to come back online so quickly in Oklahoma City? And he said 100%, like the people at American Fidelity, they were so gracious and so good to work with. So it helps, like, when I'm out telling the story and then other people have such great experiences and they're like, my landlord or, the owner of our business, like, literally went above and beyond to make things work here. So then they're out telling that story. You're in Austin and you hear somebody like that, the CEO of Flick's Brewhouse, saying Oklahoma City is phenomenal. Like we love being there. Right.
Yeah, because like I said, from a business perspective, like if somebody's coming in, what you said earlier is, it seems like, more people bringing in isn't necessarily bad for competition. It's just the more the better, right? And also, like you said, from a CEO's perspective, like when you're being welcomed into a city by other CEOs, like that's a pretty big deal. Because other people sometimes, if they're in the same business as you, are like, no, I don't want you here because you're going to take my customer base from me, right? Which that can be, I'm sure that can be seen in some cases, and naturally people would say that, but that's really cool to be on that side and hear a CEO say, like these people really actually were happy to have us here and they were really helpful and they helped us do this, and this, and then he's shouting from the rooftops that Oklahoma City is the place to go. Right.
It makes it my job easier because all these people talk. So people have a good experience or a bad experience. It's like when you go to a restaurant. If you have a great experience and you go somewhere, like you remember that and you remember the city you were in, you remember the person who waited on you. It's the same thing. Like things don't ever change like in that regard. So it's just elevated to a commercial level. So when you have a broker or a developer who is coming into your market, how they are treated and the level of hospitality that we can show them when they're here, I think is really key.
Yeah. Tell me about, I guess, the kind of development of downtown area, the Omni, the park and everything, and that whole involvement, because it's been a joy to watch. It's been great to go down there and have, dinner or, grab a milkshake at Spark. I mean, or just run around the park. Like I'm sure you know this, it is a perfect 1 mile loop around the park too. I
did not know that. I'm a cyclist, not a runner, so.
My wife told me that. I don't run either. But she ran around the north part of it. Okay. And said, it's a perfect 1 mile loop.
It's beautiful. We've done a good job. I love all the trees that they've planted. I'm excited to see them grow up and kind of help provide some shade there. So I know we bike down there from time to time, and there's more development to come. So what they're doing at Strawberry Fields, I know they got approved for some infrastructure through the city to kind of help start, building some things over there. They're working with a multifamily developer and a couple of retail things and office. So it's exciting to see that finally take off.
Right. To
and
have people living on the river, which is crazy, right? To think that one day, like I said, looking back, I used to mow that river because it was terrible. And now we have this incredible hotel and all these restaurant and businesses around it. Like it's special to see it literally come out of the ground.
It is. It's fun to be a part of it and see the fact that where I-40 used to be, and now we have the Oklahoma City Boulevard, and then what's happening with the Producers Co-op, and the Innovation District, the Innovation Hall, and I'm excited to see that area transpire. I've attended a lot of site visits over there, and I've taken some developers over there, and the wayfinding is a little bit challenging.
Where is it exactly?
It's over there where the Styles Park is. So it's the one that Dick Tannenbaum and Mark Bedford's doing. Okay. So it's I think it's close to like between $200 and $300 million project there. So it'll have like an innovation hall. There'll be some retail, some office, some technology stuff. So it's right over there at the OU Medical Health Science Center. So that'll be really exciting.
That's like the good thing, right, as well, is like being involved with local developers who are putting money back into their own city. Right. Like that's kind of cool to see that. And obviously Mark, is very well known in the downtown area, but to see him continue to invest in the city that he lives in, the city that he loves, clearly is and obviously you get to see it before it comes out of the ground and see all the models and like, wow, it's going to be sick, and I can't tell anyone about it, or I can't show you about it because it isn't done yet, but.
And what Pivot Projects is doing, so Jonathan Dodson, Candace Bates, and David Wanzer, and they have a project underway at 13th and Broadway, which I think will be really cool, and I feel like they take on some really challenging projects that really transform the community and shape the fabric of Oklahoma City. So what they did over at Stone Cloud Brewery at the
the cleaners place,
the old cleaners over there, and then
Sunshine, whatever it is,
Sunshine Cleaners, and what it was. I love that building, and just the guy who owns that is from Colorado, so to bring him here and have him be successful and bring his brewery to Oklahoma City, I think is really cool.
The one thing I love seeing, you mentioned it earlier, is the amount of stuff that like the city does, like sharing content. And when you look, especially from my side of things, when you look at the Visit OKC kind of channels, like I love seeing, for me, I love seeing a city or an invest in like showing people stuff that like they actually really want to do, right? Not just like, hey, here's a pamphlet or here's a video of like just the average, junk is what I think it is. It's really cool to see like, to have people, I'm sure you got a great team behind the Visit OKC stuff, but like every time I look at it, it's valuable information, right? And it's something new, and it's something that, hey, if you love this is where the best tacos are in Oklahoma City, and it's probably 3 out of the 5 you've never heard of, right? Like, I love Fuzzies. That's where I go all the time. I had Fuzzies like cater my wedding, but like I would need to step out, when you go to a Visit OKC and you search that, and it's like, wow, you're right. These are the best, some of the best tacos I've ever eaten. Or it's back to cycling or anything. Like it must be really cool to have that as well. But to just be involved in an organization that isn't just mailing it in every day, right? Because you guys live here and you want to grow the place that you live in. And some people don't want to do that. Some people we want to keep this for us, right? We don't want outside people moving here. We don't want people moving in from California because we wanted to keep it to be our city. But it seems like you guys want to show this city to the rest of the world and bring as many people here as possible. I just think people need to experience it because so many people think that, it's rural and there's farmland. And when I first started going to New York, because we do a big trade show, ICSC, which is Innovating Commerce Serving Communities. It used to be International Council of Shopping Centers. They rebranded, changed their name, and the first year I remember when we did that show in New York, people were like, do you guys even do permitting there? And I mean it was awful, and I was like, okay, you're gonna have to have some pretty thick skin here and deal with these people. But once they saw all the things that we were doing and like the success and the companies that were locating here in Oklahoma City, and then when they would see our marketing material and some of the pictures, I mean, like this picture I have right here of downtown, and that's pretty impressive. And when you show them the park, and that we had Kings of Leon that opened at the park, and some of those things that they're like, in Oklahoma City, like maybe I need to put that on my list. And I love it when people actually do, and they'll call me and say, hey, I'm going to be passing through, and I'm like, you're not passing through, you're going to stay a couple of nights and you're going to love this city. So it's exciting to have people have a change of heart. Well, it's been cool to. It seems like like what I've seen is you're bringing other people in, like other influencers, for example. I hate the term influencers, but that's what they're called. People in that are travel influencers and putting them up in Oklahoma City and saying, come here and show your followers. Like that's something that I love to see too, because it's a bit of a new marketing thing. Most people don't like to do that, but you're bringing people in and showing them a city that they probably wouldn't have chosen given the list of Denver, Austin, San Diego, other ones you mentioned. And then they come here and show it all to all their other followers who aren't based in Oklahoma City how incredible this place is.
Right.
And then someone comes in and stays at the Omni or whatever.
First National, or the Ambassador, or wherever, 21C. Yeah, what's really cool is, I'm primarily on the retail side, but then we have a whole team that works on office, industrial, manufacturing, aerospace. So somebody kind of is responsible for each of those different areas. And so we'll bring in like site selection consultants who make decisions on companies relocating. So if you have like a big company who's thinking about, adding another headquarters or building a technology branch, so to bring in some of those consultants who they might have never been here before. So it is a big cost or a big lift on Oklahoma City or the Chambers Port to do that, but once they get here and they're like, I had no idea. So sometimes we'll get people tickets to say, hey, you're a runner, why don't we pay for you to come to the Memorial Marathon? We'll put you up in a hotel, we'll introduce you to some different people based on what their interests are. I think we have some people coming into town later this week that are consultants that are coming in, and I think they're going to do an event at one of our venues here, and they're doing a dinner. So it'll be really nice to make sure that we're front and center and that they keep us in mind.
With back to kind of your side of things with like the bringing in businesses, it seems like the brick and mortar and I guess it's starting to pick back up, right? Because in the past it's been like you don't really need a space, you can work from home or you can work on your phone, you don't need a physical space. But now it seems like there was obviously a period during COVID as well where nobody wanted to buy a space anywhere.
Right.
But now it seems to be catching and picking back up. Well, I mean, obviously you're at the forefront of that. So.
Well, people still need connectivity, so you can, and they want things that are experiential. They want to have that touch and that feel and that sense of place. So there's only so many things you can order online, but you still don't. When you get that package in the mail from online, it's not the same as when you leave the store, when you're there shopping or when you're going out to eat. So it's really about creating that environment where people want to be. So having a district where you can eat and shop and listen to live music, and it can be a family affair. So it's like something you do on the weekend. So it's part of the experience. I think that's what's really key, is the things that people can get online that you can just click and get that are more like disposable items are different. But I think people are becoming more...
they want that interaction.
They want that. And they need that, I feel like. I mean, COVID showed us that we needed people more than... Some people are like, oh, I'm so introverted, I don't need people. And it's like, even you need people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like
it's good for your mental state. You need to be interaction with somebody.
Right.
Even if that's just saying hello.
Exactly. It's just being in the atmosphere of, listening to live music or just being at a park or having that coffee shop or whatever it is. You can order a bag of coffee online, but when you're there and use the smell and the customer service and what you leave with is really key to that. So I feel like having customer service is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. And what about, obviously you kind of grew up in the Tulsa area and you're down here, you're still down here, and you haven't been back to Tulsa, but what is it like bringing people here? Do you ever have to compete with Tulsa? Do you think of, would you love to move back? I mean, what is just the general, because obviously people joke and be like, Oklahoma City hates Tulsa, Tulsa hates Oklahoma City. But I'm interested to see kind of what it's like from your job role or your side of the world as well. Yeah,
it's funny. I didn't realize there was such a divide when I moved here. I think it was like ignorance is bliss a little bit, because I had no idea that it was such a hard divide. And I get the best of both worlds because my parents still live and my brother live in Tulsa. So I go back quite frequently. And I love Tulsa. I mean, it's beautiful and it's a great city too. I enjoyed promoting, Tulsa when I was there. Now that I've been here for so long, I feel like I'm really just invested in Oklahoma City, and just when you take people and you experience the Thunder game and you experience the whitewater rafting and get to know some of the chefs at some of the restaurants and stuff, like that's where, to me, it gets really fun, is that you build those relationships and those connectivity that make the city what it is.
I think the one thing I do think Tulsa is better at it than we are is keeping old buildings and not knocking old buildings down. But we'll leave it at that because I don't want to get into what's recently been knocked down in Oklahoma City.
Right.
But yeah, I do love Tulsa's architecture. And I was recently up there. I did a podcast with the USA BMX facility, which is
gorgeous,
incredible, which is right around the corner from Greenwood District that I didn't realize when I did the podcast because I entered from the other direction. And I was like, you guys are in the middle of nowhere. And I drove out. I did the podcast. I drove out and I was like, oh, you're not in the middle of nowhere. You're literally like 400 yards from Greenwood Rising in the whole district. So that was my bad. I don't know Tulsa well enough. But yeah, seeing, like taking people to a Thunder game and Whitewater Rapids is a little different than taking people to, what do they have in Tulsa? A baseball game.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, Tulsa's great. Terry Street's wonderful. The gathering place is nicely done, and it's beautiful, and it's very tasteful. And I feel like they're in both great cities. I love both of them, so I get the. They're totally different, though. We're 620 square miles here in Oklahoma City, so I think we're 3 times the landmass of Tulsa. Yeah. And there's just so many different districts here, and the amount of emphasis that the city has put on the districts, I think, is really key. So, between the stockyards and depending on who it is and what they want to do, there's something here that will appeal to them. Like at the IEDC conference, I had a guy that was in town, and he was from San Francisco. And he was like, I want to go to a really cool steakhouse here. And I know you probably don't have anything as cool as like what we have in, the Bay Area. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think you should go to Mahogany. You should go to Broadway 10 or, check out Red Prime. But you can go to any of them. Literally take your choice. And then the next day I saw him and he was like, oh my gosh, that was probably one of the best meals I've had. Right. So it was just exciting to see him get so excited telling. At first he's like, I have really low expectations. And I'm like, well, tomorrow let's talk again, Right. So it's exciting when they are telling the story. Like I said, you listen to them say, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like it, know. But then they're blown away and they're like, the customer service was so great, the ambiance, the food was just as good as it is in the Bay Area. So
the hardest part is just getting people here.
It is.
Right? It seems like that's what, just, getting people to give it a chance.
Right.
And then once they do, you're like, that example, no brainer. Right. Right. And it's just, and it doesn't have to be steak, right? It could be anything. And it doesn't have to be just in Oklahoma City, right? Like you could go to Guthrie or you could, like there's so many other cool things that they can do that's within 45 minutes, you go to Ishans. Oh, yeah. Right? Like this.
I've ridden my bike out to Ishans, and I've been out to Guthrie to ride, and the red dirt in Guthrie, somebody told me that one time, like, do you ever get used to the red dirt? And I'm like, I didn't like it when I first moved here, but now I love it. Yeah. And now when I see it and I'm out riding, and it's just so beautiful when you're out on a gravel road and you see the sunset and you have this beautiful red clay. I'm like, I'm kind of
This is my place.
Yeah, I love it.
This is my happy place.
Right.
So finishing up then, what, I guess, are you kind of, obviously the gravel world, you understand that, and you understand how big the Mid-South race is and just kind of how much that's bringing to the town of Stillwater. And Tulsa had the Ironman last year, right? A couple of years ago. Is there anything that could be done in Oklahoma City on this like the Ironman scale? Would that be? Is that a possibility? I know they have kind of like the Red Man, right? The red thing, which I know they do that every year. But just from your cycling, your love of cycling, is there anything that you were trying to bring here personally that would be like your next challenge, like an REI was? That you're allowed to talk about?
Well, it's tough on that one. I think you mentioned Chad earlier from what he's doing with the cycling out there at Wheeler District, and I know he was involved in Pro-Am for a number of years and really spent a lot of time and energy into creating that event, which was off to a great start. What's really challenging, I think, is we have so many different sporting arenas here in Twins. The Dodgers that we have, and then you have the Thunder and
softball.
Right, the softball. Yeah. So all those people are kind of pulling for the same sponsorship dollars, and there's only so much that a city can do. And because we have so much diversity in terms of our sporting, it limits the amount that can grow. And from a cycling standpoint, it's really hard for somebody to see the sponsorship value, because you have all these people that are going on a circuit really, really quickly, and it's not like that logo is front and center. And it's really hard, even when you watch the Tour de France or you watch some of these, elite bike races. You have to know what you're paying attention to and know what, the yellow jersey means and what's the climber jersey and, what the stage races is. And all those things are really key. And you have to really love the sport to some degree in order to be a sponsor of that. So it's really hard to get that off the ground.
Yeah.
And Tulsa has done a great job when they had Tulsa Tough, because, they had some big dollars behind that, and they got St. Francis involved, and that really just kind of paved the way for Tulsa getting on the map from a cycling standpoint. So
yeah, the other thing you mentioned baseball. The other thing I saw the other day is the Savannah Bananas are coming to town. Did you see this?
I did not see this.
Yeah, you know who they are, right?
No.
Okay, so these Savannah Bananas, which I'll say in my accent, are basically like the Globetrotters of baseball.
Oh, okay, that's fun.
Out of Savannah.
Okay.
And they're called bananas because they're yellow, and they basically dance. They're a TikTok and social media sensation. Well, they're coming to Tulsa and Oklahoma City next year, and they just announced that. So that might be another thing you might be able to use as to, hey, these people are coming to town. If you have clients in town, I'm sure they'll love it. It's hilarious. They've just made I don't think they were any good, but they made a business out of just being showboating in
It's fun.
baseball, which you generally don't see. It's hilarious. If
You
people
need that,
listening
though.
haven't seen, you do. If people listening haven't seen it, just look up on Instagram Savannah Bananas or Bananas.
I love baseball, so I'll definitely check it out.
It's just and if you love marketing, it's just, you'll nerd out on the marketing side of it, because as a marketing and branding thing, it's brilliant. So finishing up then, again, for people listening, what do you tell them, that they should do? Obviously go to the Visit OKC website and the Chamber website, but which I'll link below. But what do you what is your, I guess, the thing you tell people if hey, you're coming to Oklahoma City, you should do this, which is, again, a really hard question because there's a million things to do. But, how would you sell the city to people?
Well, luckily we have an OKC retail website too. So
okay.
Yeah, OKC retail talks about all of our different districts. It talks about the regional shopping areas. Mm-hmm. We have a map that shows the clustering of shopping destinations and shopping areas, because a lot of it is they want to see success, who's doing really well. So I feel like Class and Curve is a great example. You see a lot of high-end retailers there. Simon's doing a great job at Penn Square Mall. Now you have the Oak coming out of the ground that's going to be kind of catty corner from Penn Square. Mm-hmm. That's a local developer out of Tulsa, Ryan McNeil, who's working on that project. So he has some cool things.
Seeing that dirt work, I saw the plans. It's going to be really cool to see.
It's going to be nice, yeah. He has a couple of restaurants that are teed up to go there, and a Hilton hotel, and some residential. So it's exciting.
It seems like you absolutely love what you do, and you probably don't want to do anything else.
It's fun. I mean, I love what I do, and it's fun. I love meeting people. That's probably the most important for me. Is it's nice to see how other people think and what they're looking for, and kind of tailor our message and our conversation to them. I think that's the most fun for me, is that I don't really meet a stranger, and I can make friends pretty quickly, and I don't mind being on the road by myself. I feel like if you go on the road with somebody, then you just kind of hang out with your friend, or you hang out with that person that you're comfortable with.
You don't meet their locals. You don't see the city the right way.
Right. So I typically travel by myself, and I go to all these shows and conferences, and I'll meet with developers, and I'll have dinners with different retailers, and I see so much by doing it, because I'm kind of forced to, when I go into a room, I'm like, okay, I need to meet 5 new people tonight, or I need to have so many appointments before I get there, and they all can you can gain something from each of those, because they'll say, hey, have you met so-and-so? Have you been to this concept? Or have you talked to, and it just kind of leads to the next thing, which is really kind of fun for me. So
how do you develop that skill? That's a real skill to do that, right? To have that. I mean, I feel like I'm the same way, and to me it comes extremely naturally. Right. And I think I have an accent on my side, right? So it makes people kind of intrigued in general. But for you, when you go into a new city, and you like I said, you've got to have 5 appointments set, and you've got to do this. There's a reason you're very good at your job, and that's because you're very good. You have a skill, but there's structure to it as well.
I think honestly, it comes from growing up in a really small town, and
knowing everybody.
You knew everybody, and like it was such a fun atmosphere. I still have teachers that I went to high school with, or that were my teachers, that are friends of mine on Facebook, right? Yeah. Which is kind of crazy. I mean, it was such a small town that you love like knowing everything and knowing everybody. So when you don't know somebody in a different market, you just take that small town and you just make it, life size, right? And you try to meet as many people as you can and say, okay, well, I don't know this perspective. Let me go out here and see who I can meet. And that's the most fun for me, is that I think growing up in a very rural, country, horses and cattle, and way out in the country, that you knew your neighbors, you knew your teachers, you knew everybody that surrounded you. Yeah. And it was fun that there was a little bit of an accountability, is that you had like an expectation because people knew who you were just because it was a small town.
Yeah. It would get back to parents if you did anything bad.
They knew everything that I did. Yeah. So
is there anything you do specifically when you travel? Like, do you collect anything? Do you go to like a coffee shop? Like, is there anything that you just, every time you go somewhere, you take off something?
I try to go to a coffee shop, but I'm a huge coffee connoisseur. Okay. I just traveled last week for fun. I went to the Balloon Festival in Albuquerque.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, it was stunning. It was amazing. Like 100% put it as a bucket list item of things to do. And my boss told me that you have to go to Pinion Coffee. He's like, I don't care what you do, but you have to go to Pinion Coffee. So I went by there and I ended up buying 3 bags of coffee because I loved it so much. So yeah, I love coffee. I love wine. I always end up picking something up for my little puppy Lucy when I'm in town. Yeah.
So what dog do you have?
What do you mean? What kind of dog?
Yeah, what puppy?
Oh, she's a beagle.
Oh, okay.
She's the cutest thing in the whole world.
Yeah. Has she grown into her legs yet?
Yeah, she has her little howl, so she has a little bark, but she's precious. She loves to hike. We take her to Colorado, and she'll hike like 14,000-foot peaks, and she's very adventurous. She paddle boards, and yeah.
That's awesome. You got a little mascot to take you everywhere. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you so much for spending an hour of your time chatting,
Absolutely.
Telling stories about this incredible city, talking about your job, what you love to do, your puppy, Lucy, which is great. I'm sure she'll have a friend soon, because that's just generally how it goes.
It is how it goes.
Because we started with one, and then 2 years later we had another.
Right.
So it'll happen, sadly. But I really appreciate you coming in. For people listening, tell me the website so they should go to, and just, I mean, any hot tips you have for new coffee now, because it seems like you love your coffee.
I do love my coffee. So the website is okcretail.com. So all kinds of live content on there, upcoming openings and stories. Follow us on Velocity. So I know the Chamber puts out a lot of stories on our Velocity channel as well. And you can reach me anytime. So email is tfate@okcchamber.com. And if you have any companies that you would like to see located here, or retailers that are not here that we're missing, I'm all ears. So let me know, and I'll try to track them down and see why they're not here, or if we can get them here. So
yeah. Another REI or another something else would be great, right?
That would be.
Are you allowed to say, is there one you're working on that you're allowed to tell us about, or not?
There's one we're working on, but I can't tell you. All I can tell you is it's a big entertainment user, and it's amazing. And if it happens, I don't want to jinx us.
I don't want to jinx it.
I don't want it to not happen, but if it does happen, it will be amazing. And I think everybody will be quite impressed.
Do you have a timeline on it?
It should happen before the end of this year.
All right. So, great teaser to finish on.
That's right.
Tammy, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming in. This has been an absolute blast.
Thanks,
and
Mike.
For people listening, I'll put the links in the description to okcretail.com, Tammy's email if you want to reach out and tell her or ask her why this brand isn't in town yet, and then we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And finally, our third sponsor for today, the Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is the direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with the trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. It's 988oklahoma.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.